When I turned 70, I moved in with my daughter, thinking we'd spend warm evenings together and I'd get to see my granddaughter grow. Instead, I found myself sleeping on a fold-out cot in the corner of their laundry room. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, Mia, my 8-year-old granddaughter, tiptoed into my little corner and whispered, "Why don't they love you?" I smiled, kissed her forehead, and handed her an envelope. "Maybe this will help you understand someday," I said. Inside that envelope wasn't just a piece of paper. It was the title to the house they claimed was theirs. My name is Nancy Halpern. I'm 70 years old, and for most of my life I lived in a modest 2-story home on Elm Street. Nothing grand, but it was built with love. My husband, Harold, and I saved for 10 years to buy that land. We poured the foundation ourselves, picked every tile and brick, and planted the hydrangeas that bloomed blue every spring. When he passed away 15 years ago, that house became my anchor. Every creak of the floorboard was a memory. Every faded photo on the wall whispered a story. For a while, I enjoyed the quiet. I read books in the sunroom, tended my little herb garden, and baked pies for the church bazaar. But the winters got colder, my joints stiffer, and the loneliness a bit heavier. My daughter Jessica began calling more often. "You shouldn't be all alone in that big house, Mom," she'd say. "It makes me worry." Jessica had always been thoughtful, or at least she appeared to be. At 42, she had built a stable life, a charming husband named Greg, a sweet daughter, Mia, and a house in the suburbs with a backyard and a deck. She was always busy, always efficient. When she suggested I move in with them, she made it sound like an act of love. "I just want you to be close," she said. "It'll be easier for you, and Mia would love to have her grandma around." I hesitated. That house, my house, wasn't just a building. It was Harold's voice in the hallway, my own laughter echoing from past Thanksgivings, the scent of cinnamon still baked into the kitchen tiles. But Jessica's offer was wrapped in warmth, and I wanted to see Mia grow up. So I agreed. We sold the house. Jessica handled the paperwork. I signed things I didn't fully read, trusting her as any mother would. When I arrived at their home, it felt like stepping into a new chapter. Jessica had arranged a welcome dinner, with Mia drawing a "Welcome Grandma" sign in purple crayon. For a moment, my heart swelled. I was needed again. I was part of something. But after that night, the coziness faded into practicality. They didn't have a spare room ready, so Jessica cleared out a corner of the living room and set up a fold-out bed. "Just for now," she said. "We'll figure something better soon." She gave me a soft blanket and a small side table for my books. I smiled and told her it was fine. I didn't want to be a burden. Weeks passed and the temporary setup became permanent. My books stayed in boxes. The only time I had real privacy was in the bathroom. Jessica began organizing everything: meal plans, house schedules, even how many times a week I should do laundry. "Mom, we just need to keep things efficient," she explained. "It's not personal." I found myself watching Mia more and more. "Can you pick her up from school? Can you help with homework?" I didn't mind. I loved spending time with Mia. But Jessica insisted on no sweets, no unsupervised outdoor time, and no bedtime stories after 8 p.m. "She gets overexcited," Jessica would say. "We need structure." Structure, it seemed, was another word for control. Greg was polite. Distant, but polite. He greeted me each morning with a tight smile, but his eyes avoided mine. Sometimes I'd hear hushed conversations between him and Jessica in the kitchen. Once I caught a glance he gave when I asked if I could bake Mia's favorite cookies. It wasn't anger, just annoyance. Still, Mia was my sunshine. She'd curl up beside me on the fold-out bed and tell me about her school day. She'd draw pictures of the two of us holding hands under rainbow skies. "I wish you lived here forever, Grandma," she whispered one night. "I do live here," I replied. "No, like, really live here. In your own room, like I do." That hit deeper than she knew. One afternoon, I overheard Jessica on the phone. "It's just hard," she said. "Having her here changes the dynamic. Greg needs his space. I didn't think it would feel so crowded." I retreated to the corner that was mine and tried not to make a sound. I didn't remind anyone it was my birthday. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd remember. It wasn't about the cake or the candles. I'd already baked a small apple pie, the kind Harold used to request every year. I wasn't planning a party or expecting balloons. I just wanted dinner together. A few laughs, Mia's handmade card, a hug. That morning, Jessica rushed past me, her phone pressed to her ear. "We're heading out for the day," she said quickly, grabbing her sunglasses and tote bag. "Greg's got a meeting in the city. Mia's tagging along." I raised an eyebrow. "On a Saturday?" She looked up, paused for half a second, then forced a smile. "It's a networking thing. We might be gone late. Don't wait up." Mia waved as they slipped out the door. "Love you, Grandma," I waved back, my heart already sinking. I told myself not to take it personally. Maybe they'd surprise me later. I lit a candle and placed it on the pie. It flickered in the dim light of the living room. I sat alone, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. For a moment, I imagined Harold sitting across from me, teasing me about being officially old. I laughed softly to myself. Then the silence swallowed it whole. By 9 p.m., no one had come home. I tried calling Jessica, but it went straight to voicemail. So I did what any lonely old woman does in the digital age. I opened Facebook. Scrolling past political rants and cat memes, I stopped cold. There they were. A friend from church, now following Jessica's account, had liked a photo. Jessica, Greg, Mia, on a beach, wearing matching sunglasses, eating shaved ice, laughing. The caption, "Family getaway much needed. Getaway. Much needed." My hand trembled as I scrolled through the rest. Pictures of a luxurious resort, a giant pool, a seafood buffet, Greg sipping a drink, Jessica sunbathing, Mia building sandcastles. I wasn't mentioned. Not once, not even a "wish Mom could join us." Just gone. Like I was invisible. Later that night, the front door creaked open. I stayed on the fold-out cot, the lights off. I heard giggles, bags being dropped, shoes kicked off. "Shh," Jessica whispered. "She's probably asleep." Footsteps padded down the hallway, then a soft knock. "Grandma?" It was Mia. I turned on the lamp. She climbed onto the cot beside me, still smelling of sunscreen and salt water. She was quiet for a long moment, then she whispered, "Why don't they love you?" I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I just looked at her, this child with more empathy than 2 grown adults, and smiled. "They do," I lied gently. "They just show it differently." She snuggled against me and fell asleep. I stayed awake all night. The next morning, I made coffee and waited for Jessica in the kitchen. She breezed in, sunglasses on top of her head, scrolling through her phone. "Morning," she muttered. "Did you have a nice getaway?" I asked calmly. She looked up, startled. "Oh, you saw that?" I nodded. She shrugged. "We needed it. Greg's been stressed. You understand." I said nothing. She opened the fridge. "We brought back seafood if you want some." I left the kitchen. Later that day, I sent her a text. "We should talk when you have a moment." No reply. I tried again that evening. Still nothing. When I made dinner the next night, chicken pot pie, Mia's favorite, Greg frowned when he walked in. "I thought we were ordering out," he said, placing the takeout bags on the counter. "We already paid." "I didn't know," I said softly. Jessica didn't look up from her phone. I boxed up the pie and ate alone. The shift was subtle, but unmistakable. Jessica spoke less. Greg avoided eye contact. Even Mia, sensing the tension, stopped bouncing into my corner with the same cheer. She still drew me pictures. One of us sitting on a bench by a lake, holding hands, the words, "Grandma's house," written above in crayon. I taped it to the wall beside my cot. That night, I looked around the living room, my room, a suitcase tucked under the table, my pill organizer next to a lamp, a single photograph of Harold and me on a bookshelf no one else touched. I realized I had no space, no presence, no real home, just a corner, an afterthought. I stared at the ceiling for a long time before whispering to the dark, "What am I doing here?" Then a thought came. Quiet. Persistent. Whose house is this, really? 2 days after the forgotten birthday, I stood in the garage, surrounded by plastic bins and cobwebs. Jessica had said I could use it for some light storage, but it felt more like a place to keep what didn't belong in the main house, like me. I shuffled through a dusty bin marked Old Docs. Inside were folders of Harold's tax records, warranty slips for kitchen appliances from the 90s, and a brittle envelope labeled House Original. My breath caught. Inside was a copy of the original deed. There it was, my name, Nancy Halpern, next to Harold's. Joint ownership, clear as day. A chill slid down my spine. I dug deeper, searching for anything else. At the bottom of another box, I found Harold's will, folded neatly, yellowed at the edges. I hadn't seen it in years, and certainly not since he passed. When I opened it, the air seemed to still. To my beloved wife, Nancy, I leave all real and financial assets in full, without exception. No contingencies, no fine print. Just a husband securing his wife's future. And Jessica had never once brought this up. I remembered the day I signed over the Elm Street house. Jessica had said it was necessary, just to make paperwork cleaner when we moved. She was the one who coordinated everything. "Don't worry, Mom, I'll handle the legal stuff. You just sign where the sticky notes are." I did, without question. But why had she needed to transfer everything into her name? That night, I opened Harold's old laptop, still in the garage, miraculously working, and logged into an old email account I hadn't touched in years. I searched keywords, deed, house, transfer, and there it was, an email string between Jessica and a real estate attorney from 5 years ago. She'd written, "I don't want to involve my mother in the details. She's too emotional and forgetful these days. Can we expedite the title transfer in a way that minimizes her involvement?" The lawyer responded with options. One, in particular, stood out, a method that allowed for the sale of property without full disclosures, under the assumption of power of attorney. But I never gave her power of attorney, ever. I sat back, trembling. My daughter, my only child, had taken advantage of my trust, not just emotionally, legally. She hadn't just wanted me close. She wanted me powerless. The next day, I called an attorney, a soft-voiced man named Alan who listened patiently as I explained what I'd found. "Bring everything," he said. "And please, don't tell them you're speaking to me yet." I met him that Friday, clutching Harold's will, the original deed, and the printed emails. He reviewed everything silently, nodding occasionally. Then he looked up. "Mrs. Halpern," he said carefully, "did you ever sign a formal deed transfer to your daughter?" "I signed papers," I said slowly, "but I don't remember a specific transfer. She told me it was for the sale of the old house, that everything was standard." He tilted his head. "Because this title transfer document, which I requested from the county records, it lacks a witness, and the signature here doesn't match yours." He laid the paper in front of me. My name was there, but the loops were wrong. The N didn't curl like mine. The H was stiff. It looked like my signature, but through a mirror. "Did you sign this?" he asked. I stared at the document, at my own forged name. "No," I whispered. He nodded solemnly. "This could be challenged, strongly." That evening, while I was folding Mia's laundry, Jessica had asked me to help, Mia skipped into the living room, clutching a piece of paper. "Grandma, this was in Mommy's drawer. It has your name on it." She handed it to me. It was a will, a new one, labeled Nancy Halpern, Will, 2021. The contents froze my blood. It stated that all my assets in the event of my death would go to Jessica. No mention of Harold's will, no joint ownership, no home equity, no furniture, nothing. And at the bottom, my signature. Again. Perfectly forged. Tears welled in my eyes. Mia tilted her head. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart," I said, pulling her close. "You just helped Grandma remember who she really is." I finally understood. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't miscommunication. This was theft. A quiet, calculated erasure. And I had let it happen. For the next week, I lived in silence, but not passivity. Each night after Jessica and Greg had gone to bed, I sat in the dim light of the kitchen, going through every drawer, every file cabinet, every storage bin in the garage. I wore gloves so nothing would be out of place. Not yet. Not until I was ready. I found check stubs from when Harold and I made our final mortgage payment. I found old letters between us, one of which he signed, "Can't wait to grow old with you in our house." There were invoices for roof repairs, tax payments, even a photo of Harold and me standing in front of the house with a sold sign in 1984. I kept everything. I printed my bank statements, the ones that showed I'd contributed to utility bills and groceries long after I'd moved in. Jessica hadn't paid for everything, no matter what she told people. I had receipts. Then I sat down and wrote a letter. Not to Jessica, not to Greg, to Mia. It began, "My dearest girl, if you're reading this, it means you've started to wonder about what happened. Maybe things didn't feel right. Maybe you heard more than they thought. If so, this letter, and the box with it, might help you understand who truly built the foundation under your feet." I sealed the letter in an envelope and tucked it into a padded box along with copies of the deed, Harold's will, my own affidavit, and a USB drive. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I recorded myself. I set up my old phone on the windowsill and pressed record. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just talked plainly, calmly about everything. The house, Harold, Jessica, the lies, the forgery. "My name is Nancy Halpern," I began. "I was called a guest in the home I helped build. I was erased. But this is me, remembering." I uploaded the video to a private account and scheduled it for public release 7 days later, unless I manually canceled. I handed the box to my attorney the next day. "Deliver it if something happens," I told him. He nodded. "Are you in danger?" "No, I said, "but I'm done being invisible." By Friday morning, I'd packed my few clothes, my toiletries, and Mia's crayon drawings. I called a cab to a senior living community where I'd already reserved a private room. I left no note for Jessica, no goodbyes, just an empty living room. And on the kitchen table, I placed a single envelope, handwritten, unsealed. Inside, a card. "You stole my place in this home," it read. "But you can't steal the truth." Jessica didn't call. Not that day, not the next. I expected anger, a frantic message, something. But silence filled the void. Exactly 1 week later, I sat in my new room, a cozy space with a reading chair and a small garden view, and watched the world shift. The video went live at 8:15 a.m. Within an hour, it had 4,000 views. By noon, it hit 50,000. The title alone pulled people in. They said I was a guest, but I own this home. The comments came pouring in. "This broke me." My mom went through the same thing. "How dare her daughter treat her like this?" The internet wasn't kind to Jessica. A few viewers identified her from the photos I'd left at the end. Others tracked her social media, sharing old posts that now read as chillingly self-congratulatory. Just trying to take care of family. Or, "Some people don't know how good they have it." By sundown, reporters had reached out. Advocacy groups for elder rights began quoting my video. A lawyer posted a reaction video breaking down the legal violations involved. I turned off my phone after the millionth notification. I didn't need vengeance. I just needed truth. That night, Mia called. Jessica must not have known. "Grandma," she whispered, "I saw your video. I knew you weren't just a guest." "I'm proud of you for watching," I said softly. "I saved the drawing, the one with the lake house," she said. "I still want it to be real." "Maybe one day it will be," I replied. When I hung up, I sat in silence. Then I smiled, for the first time in a long, long while. By the third day after the video went viral, the phone at Alan's law office wouldn't stop ringing. Calls from journalists, advocacy groups, and even a few aging mothers who wanted to know if what happened to me was legal. Spoiler, it wasn't. Alan sat across from me, reading aloud from the county clerk's report. "The signature on the transfer document is confirmed as non-matching. Will file suit under fraud, forgery, and unlawful conveyance." I nodded, calmly. "We can also request injunctive relief to freeze the property title," he continued. "They won't be able to sell or refinance the house." I wasn't sure I wanted the house back, but I wanted my name back, my story, my truth. The lawsuit hit Jessica like a lightning bolt. Her first move was denial. She posted a long, teary Facebook video about being blindsided by her mother's vindictive accusations. But people weren't buying it. The receipts were out there. My voice, my documents, my story, and they resonated. The courtroom hearing arrived a month later. Small, quiet, but very, very real. Jessica walked in, flanked by a new attorney. Greg wasn't beside her. I learned he had left days after the backlash began. According to whispers, he'd lost his job after the company was flooded with comments linking his name to elder abuse. Mia sat beside me, her hand in mine, her little feet swinging from the bench. The judge, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a straight mouth, asked if anyone else wanted to testify. Mia raised her hand. Jessica's attorney tried to object, but the judge allowed it. Mia stood, barely tall enough to see over the railing. "Your Honor," she said, voice clear, "my grandma never lied to me. She told me stories, she gave me cookies, she helped me with school. But Mommy, she told me Grandma was just visiting, that she was lucky to have a roof. But Grandma showed me the paper. It had her name. I don't know everything, but I believe Grandma." The courtroom went silent. Jessica's jaw tightened. The judge reviewed the evidence. Harold's will, the forged documents, my bank records, the original deed, all of it carefully laid out by Alan. And then, the verdict. This court recognizes Nancy Halpern as the lawful co-owner of the property in question, the judge stated. The transfer executed by Jessica Halpern is deemed fraudulent and void. Immediate restitution is ordered. The property is to revert under joint ownership or full ownership to Nancy Halpern as successor of Harold Halpern's estate. Jessica didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just sat there, blinking, as if the room had melted away. Afterward, she stormed out. No glance back. No goodbye to Mia. Greg had already sent divorce papers, someone told me later. As for me, I walked out of that courtroom with a copy of the judgment in one hand and Mia's drawing in the other. The one with our little lake house, the one she had drawn when all of this began. Weeks passed. I was given full legal control of the house. I could have moved back in, but I didn't want to. It wasn't home anymore. Too many shadows clung to the corners, so I sold it at a fair price, not to spite anyone, not for revenge, but for freedom. With the money, I bought a small cottage on the edge of a quiet community. The backyard sloped into a little pond. Ducks gathered at sunrise. Mia visited on weekends. We picked wildflowers. We watched stars. People called me brave. But I wasn't brave. I was just tired of being erased. One afternoon, sitting on the porch with Mia, she asked, "Are you sad it all happened?" I took a sip of tea and looked at the horizon. "No," I said. "I'm sad it had to happen, but I'm glad we're here now." She leaned on my shoulder. "It's a good thing you told the truth." I smiled. It always is. The senior community I moved into wasn't anything like the cold, sterile facilities people imagine. It was sunlit and quiet, with rows of maple trees that turned amber in the fall, and a small pond where ducks glided lazily on still mornings. There were no locked doors, no condescending nurses calling us sweetie. It was a place of dignity. I had my own unit, a cozy suite with a bay window, a bookshelf I finally had time to fill, and a little kitchenette for tea and cookies. The staff greeted me by name. Some residents had seen the video. They nodded respectfully when they passed, and one woman, Dottie, brought me lemon bars every Friday. I no longer felt like I had to shrink to fit into someone else's life. I had my space, my name on the door, my choices respected. Every Sunday, Mia came to visit. She arrived with her hair in a braid and arms full of something. A book she was reading, a bouquet of wildflowers, sometimes a playlist of songs she thought I'd like. We sat by the pond or walked slowly down the garden path. One afternoon, she brought a box tied in yellow ribbon. "I made this," she said shyly. Inside was a scrapbook. Photos of us from every visit, captions in her handwriting, dried petals pressed between pages. One page had a photo of us sitting on the porch of my new place, and beneath it, in blue pen, she'd written, "Home is where Grandma is tine." I choked back tears. Later that evening, I gave her a small velvet pouch. Inside was a silver necklace, delicate and simple. On the charm, I had engraved, "Unconditional." She tilted her head. "What's that mean?" I pulled her close. "It means love without expecting something in return, the way you've always loved me." Tucked inside the pouch was a note. "Never forget to love, like you did when you were little, with all your heart and no conditions." She wore it every visit after that. Meanwhile, the world kept moving. The video continued to circulate. People sent letters to the senior community asking to meet me, to hear more, to share their own stories. Some were angry. Some were heartbroken. But most were grateful that someone had spoken up, that someone had named the quiet betrayal they themselves were too afraid to confront. I received emails from women in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. They wrote, "Thank you for giving me a voice." Or, "I thought I was the only one." So I recorded another video. This time I sat on the porch with the pond in the background. The wind rustled the leaves behind me. My voice was steady. "I once thought love meant silence," I said, "that keeping the peace was more important than telling the truth. But peace without respect isn't peace. It's surrender. I let myself be erased because I thought I was being loyal. I thought, she's my daughter, she must mean well." But sometimes the people we love forget that we are still whole, still thinking, still deserving. I paused. Let the words sink. Don't let the people you love erase your story. You're still here, and your name still matters. I ended the video with a small, quiet smile. That video did something the first one didn't. It sparked a movement. People, mostly women, began using the hashtag #StillHere to share their own experiences. Stories poured in from every corner of the country. Some had been pushed into garages, like me. Others had their finances quietly stripped away. A few had never dared say a word. The National Association for Elder Rights contacted me and invited me to speak on a panel. I declined the stage but wrote a letter they read aloud. No matter how old you are, no matter how quiet they expect you to be, your voice still echoes. Use it. And Mia, sweet Mia, she grew up with fire in her chest. She watched her mother fall, watched truth rise, and she never forgot. She studied law. On the day she passed the bar exam, she called me in tears. "Grandma, I did it. I'm going to protect people like you." "No," I said gently. "You're going to protect people like you. People who know right from wrong and choose right, even when it hurts." Years later, she opened her own practice, Halpern Justice for the Aging. Her first client was a woman whose son tried to take her pension. She won. At the dedication of her new office, she hung a framed photo of the drawing she made as a child, the lake house. Grandma and Mia hand in hand under a rainbow. She called the photo "The Truth They Couldn't Erase." And on her desk, she kept a card I once wrote. It read, "If they ever make you feel small, remind them who you come from."